Thanks for tuning in to another terrific Tips for Business podcast. I am Terry, your host, and today we have the honor and privilege of having Miss Alyse Bacine. Did I say that correctly? Say it again. Bacine. I have Alyse Bacine with us, and she is a Philadelphia native. So for those of you who are in the Philadelphia area, she is right there with you and enjoying our wonderful summer weather as it's approaching. She is a breath worker and psychic healer, which is very interesting. I had the pleasure of having a conversation with her just a couple of days ago to learn a little bit more about that, and I'm looking forward to her sharing some of that with us today. In her work with her clients, she uses her psychic abilities to tap into the energy of her clients and see exactly where they're feeling stuck. And then she's able to guide them to release that stuck energy through some simple breathing techniques that she's really honed in on over her career. Alyse is extremely passionate about healing and personal growth, and her message is everyone has something to heal, and everyone can heal and create exactly the life they desire. Her mission is to guide people to healing and living their soul's purpose. Alyse has been practicing breathwork for 20 years, and she studied with Sandra Ray, Leonard Orr, Tony Lo Mastro, Maureen Malone, and Rhonda Levand?
Levand, yeah.
Yeah? Okay, cool. Additionally, Alyse has a master's degree in school counseling and has developed a meditation program and curriculum for middle school students. Alyse is a certified yoga teacher, wife, and mother of two. Please join me in welcoming Miss Alyse to the show. I'm so excited to have her here because we've had a lot of conversations that kind of dance around some of these topics. So I'm excited that she got to join us today. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Nice. So tell us a little bit more about this breath work that you do, because I think breath work and psychic healing kind of go hand in hand. So enlighten us on that journey.
Yeah, so with breath work, I actually was introduced to breath work when I was 19 years old. And I was in college and I was working at a yoga studio, and I was introduced to breath work, and it really helped me a lot. I was struggling at the time with anxiety and with an eating disorder, and I was just going through a really hard time in my life. Being out on my own, being in college and just trying to discover like who I am. And I knew there was kind of more for me than just like going to college and like becoming a teacher like my parents. And then I discovered breath work, and it kind of opened up a whole new world for me. And not only was I able to heal myself from an eating disorder and from the anxiety that I was experiencing, but then I started to be able to share it with other people. And I was teaching classes and having private clients, and it just really opened up a whole new perspective for me of how to look at the world, which I think I took with me into the rest of my life. And it really just gave me the ability to take responsibility for myself in a new way, just by looking at my relationships with my parents growing up and the limiting beliefs that I had for myself, and being able to like transform them and create a story for myself beyond what my family or society, quote unquote, thought I should do.
I love that you mentioned the limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs is something that can really hold a business owner, entrepreneur, or even anybody really, can really hold them back from being able to experience the full human existence. And part of that human existence is encountering people with different belief systems or different perspectives on things than us, and how we deal with that. So what's some of the things that you did to overcome some of your limiting beliefs, if you don't mind sharing some of that story?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I just want to say that it's a process that's never finished. So it's not like all of a sudden one day I'm like, oh, I don't have any more limiting beliefs. I think it's about awareness and changing your relationship to those beliefs. So, just to speak on breath work a little bit, because that relates to the limiting beliefs. When we practice breath work, what happens is that energy starts to move in the body, right? And as this energy starts to move, stuck energy that is living in the body from past traumas that have happened or even old ways of thinking, these kind of hold a chemical signature in our cells, right? Old things that have happened, old feelings that we're holding on to. And as we breathe, this stuck energy starts to move. And what ends up happening is beliefs or feelings or emotions or things that have happened in the past that are living in the subconscious enter into the conscious awareness so that we can heal them and release them. So when I discovered breath work and I started practicing it all the time, these subconscious limiting beliefs were able to come into my awareness so that I could become aware of what they were. And a lot of it was around my relationships with my parents, and unknowingly kind of living from a place where I was seeking their approval instead of living for what was truly in my heart. And an example of that would be, my parents were both teachers. I went to college and I got a teaching degree, even though it really wasn't exactly what was in alignment with me. A lot of my unconscious motivations were around seeking approval from them and just going in that direction because I thought that's what they wanted me to do.
And we can all relate to that, I think. I think we all at some point or in some way are seeking approval from somebody, even if it's not our parents, we're seeking approval from somebody.
Yes.
And it probably isn't ourself. And so what was really key and important that you said there was the first step is really utilizing the breath work to help you become more aware. But awareness is key, right? That's step one. We have to be aware of what we're thinking or what we're feeling to even try to take the next step.
That's the number one thing. And once you have the awareness, then you're empowered to make a new decision for yourself. And there's kind of two parts to it when we're talking about breath work is the awareness that comes up for you, but then through the breath work, you can actually physically release that old energy from the body, which creates new space to create something different for yourself, create a new story that's more in alignment with who you really are.
Yes. And so when we were talking yesterday, one of the process that you've gone through as a business owner, you've had to really lean on your breath work to help you through some challenges and some self-doubt when it came to being a business owner. So kind of talk through some of that with us, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah. So for me, as a healer and as someone who's helping other people become more conscious, as a business owner, I really have to take a look at myself and see like what is holding me back energetically, like what in my energy is not aligned with what I'm trying to create. Does that make sense? So for me, a lot of it was around trusting myself, like trusting that I could really do this. I think a lot of what was holding me back before was lack of confidence or trust in myself that I can actually like go out and do this thing on my own that's different from what my parents did and what I was told that I was like able to do. So it took a lot of like confidence and wherewithal to be like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And then really trusting myself to actually do it. And then every step of the way is like another layer of having to trust myself. And as I go forward, I come up against it all the time. Like as I'm wanting to grow, I have to come up against a new layer of having to trust myself and really believe and have the confidence that this is actually going to happen. And it's like a constant thing. Like when I first started out, it happened with, I was teaching more group classes. And then as I wanted to move into working more intensively with one-on-one clients, I had to step into a new phase or a new opening of being really confident to call in these clients at larger price points and working in a deeper way with them. So I had to like really trust myself and get through these barriers, like these, it's like these glass ceilings that we create for ourselves, you know, that we don't think we can get past. And then every time you hit a new one, you have to figure out how to like break through it in a sense.
Those are the limiting beliefs, right?
Yes,
and so
exactly.
as we work through those limiting beliefs, we build more trust in ourselves because we have more that we can look back at and say, well, but if I didn't know what I was doing, I wouldn't have been able to this. And then I wouldn't have been able to that. And I wouldn't have been able to this. But I did do all of those things. So then obviously I do know. And so that helps you build that confidence up. But you have to be aware that you're even facing those glass ceilings. It's really hard to be aware of those sometimes because sometimes you don't see them or don't recognize them.
Yeah, and it is because, you know, you can just think, I think one mistake that a lot of business owners make, and I see my husband doing this all the time, so I'm always telling him this, is
sorry, you're not on the call right now.
But I think a lot of times we think the problem is out here, right? Like if we're not seeing the results we want to see, it's like, oh, I have to change what I'm doing, like marketing wise, or change my social media strategy or whatever it is. We always think that the problem is out here. And if we can just get it right out here, then everything's going to fall into place. And not to say that's not true, because obviously all of those things have their place and are super helpful in creating our business. But if we don't have it together inside and we don't really believe in what we're doing because we don't believe in ourselves, or we're not connected to our intuition, which is something I will talk about more, and allowing that to guide us, then all of that stuff out here is not going to matter because we're not connected from within to believe that we can actually do this.
So that's so good, especially right now. There's a lot of craziness in the world happening right now. And we have a lot of limiting beliefs and we do a lot of finger pointing, blaming, shaming. Happens a lot in our culture, our society, our world as a whole has an issue with this. And so taking more time to do more self-work and reflection and tapping into your intuition. And I look forward to you talking a little bit more about that. We need to know how to do that. And how do we know that what we're hearing isn't just another voice? How do we know we're not crazy, Alyse? How do I know that voice that I'm hearing isn't just another voice in my head that I need medicine for?
I know it's hard, but to me, I feel like as a business owner, one of the most important tools you can utilize is connecting with your intuition, because, and it doesn't have to be like a complicated thing. It's just really listening to what's truly in your heart. So it doesn't have to be super complicated. It's really just listening to that part of yourself and being able to connect to this part of yourself that always knows the answer, right? And we all have this part of ourselves deep within us that knows the direction we should be going, that knows what to do. But sometimes we're just scared to listen to it, and it's hard to connect with it, especially because we're kind of conditioned by society to like always look out here for what the answers are, right? So like growing up, it's like, oh, well, you ask your parent, or if you're sick, like you ask the doctor, or if you don't know how to do something, you ask like an authority on that. So we're kind of conditioned to look outside of ourselves for answers. And when it comes to things like your business or what direction to go in life, those are the types of things that like only you really truly know the answer to that. And being able to connect in with that is, I think, one of the most powerful things you can do in your business. Because if you're acting from a place of like, okay, I'm just going to do this because I think it's what other people want, or I think this is going to make more money or whatever, that's never going to work if it's not aligned with like what you truly feel like your gifts are and what you should be sharing with people. So to me, being able to connect with that place within you is one of the most powerful tools. And breath work is an amazing way to connect with your intuition. So, and I can talk a little bit more about that if you'd like.
I think it would be really interesting to know, though, we hear intuition. Intuition has been something that people have talked about for a long time. But how do we know that it's intuition and it's not something that somebody else planted in us before, that's just now coming to our awareness in that moment?
That's a really good question. And I think there doesn't always have to be, you don't always have to distinguish between that. And just because somebody put something in your head doesn't mean that it's not aligned for you. So what I mean is, it might be coming to your mind at a certain point for a reason, right? Because if some people say things to you all the time, right? Like, and they can go in one ear and out the other if it's not aligned for you. Yeah. But if someone says something to you and later it kind of pops into your head and it resonates with you, that is your intuition. That is that part of yourself telling you, hey, this is something you should listen to, right? Mm-hmm. So I always describe it too as like, so if you had to distinguish between a thought or your intuition, right? And I always distinguish it as if you're just having like a random thought, it's usually attached to some sort of like feeling, right? Like it could be like a worry or a fear. To me, whenever I get like an intuitive hit, there's not really an emotion attached to it. It's just kind of like a thing that like flickers in my head or just hits me real quick. And I'm like, oh. And then I kind of go about my day. And then later on, I was like, oh, that was my intuition. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily have an emotion attached to it.
Exactly.
It's an emotionless thought.
Yeah, because a lot of times if it has an emotion attached to it, it's probably just like a fear or a worry or even an excitement, right? Of like what you think might happen. That's not necessarily your intuition. That's kind of your mind like speculating or trying to plan or control the future. Your intuition is just like a pop of information that usually doesn't have an emotion attached to it.
I can relate to that. I understand that, because if you think about, when do you usually have these thoughts, these moments of inspiration? It's your quiet moments, right? For parents, it's when you're in the bathroom and the door's locked and the kid's outside.
Yeah, or like when you're driving or something and you're not
driving. Yeah, or you're taking a shower. It's that moment where you're quiet and you're not necessarily physically still, but you're not in front of the technology. Mm-hmm. So you get to be mentally still in that moment. And then there's always this, oh, I could do this. Mm-hmm. And that's usually how it hits me. It's I could do, and whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. And it just kind of like hits you, and it's not really attached to like a worry or a fear. Like, granted, maybe you'll start spinning into a thought cycle and then start worrying that you can't do it or whatever it is. But like when it first comes on, it's just usually like a hit of information that's like, oh.
Yeah. I think it's important too that once you recognize that you've had this thought of, ooh, I could, don't instantly go to, but how?
Right, exactly. That's so important, because then you start thinking about all the reasons why you can't or why it won't work. Right. And that's when, that's not productive for anyone. And sometimes you don't need to know how right away. You just need to know that this is what you want to do, and then trust that everything else is going to like fall into place and it's going to be revealed to you how it's going to happen. And you don't have to know. I think at like our planning brains, or like our brains in general, they want to like plan everything and be able to control everything and know how everything is going to work. And when you're working with your intuition and really trusting that guidance, you don't need to know any of that. You just need to trust that all the details will work out.
I love that you're bringing up trust again.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's interesting that you bring it up, because in our society, in our world, I think trust in general is a challenge that people have for themselves, for each other. And so, what are maybe some steps we can take to start to develop trust?
That's a really good question. So for me, I think first, like two things I think are the major ones is meditation and breath work. And to me, those have been really powerful in helping me develop a sense of trust with myself, because without setting aside some sort of time and making a routine of consistently connecting with yourself, it makes it difficult to create trust, because you're not giving yourself the space to connect with yourself. Unless you're giving yourself space of being quiet and going within and really experiencing yourself in the present moment, it's hard to find that trust, because you're just kind of in this loop of thoughts all day nonstop and outer stimulation, and there's kind of like no space for you to really go in and connect with yourself. So to me, those are the two most important tools of really beginning to create a connection with yourself where you can really trust and then start to like foster that sense of trust and build it.
So how much time should somebody spend? And I don't like the word should. Where can we start? Like, how much time can we start with if we are somebody who's never done any kind of meditation or breath work before?
So that's a really good question. And I think it can differ a little bit for everybody, because it depends on kind of what works for you. But even if you just start out, and I remember when I first started doing meditation, I started out with just doing 5 minutes of meditation every morning. And it really made an impact on me. And all I did was I would turn the timer on my phone, and I would sit with my eyes closed and focus on my breathing for 5 minutes. And like, that can feel like a lot if you never did meditation at all. So just to even start out that simply, I think after you do it for a certain period of time, you will notice a difference. There's also great guided meditations, and I have a free guided meditation on my website, which anyone can get and do, which is I think it's 20 minutes. And it's a guided meditation to like relax your body. So, and there's all kinds of guided meditations available. And I think a lot of people prefer that because it kind of like gives your mind something to do.
Yeah.
Because I think some people get overwhelmed by like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, I can't think about nothing. Like, how am I supposed to do this?
I do that. And it took me a long time. I now am really good about setting aside 15 minutes every morning before I get out of bed. Quiet, like be still meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I was better before the quarantine about doing yoga in the morning. So I would then have 30 minutes of physical like movement meditation.
Yeah.
But since the quarantine, I'm like, get up when? I don't want to do that. I just want to stay in bed. So I allow myself the 15 minutes to stay in bed and do the be still meditation. And then usually at some point during the day, I take the dog for a walk, and that's a good time to just kind of connect with the earth and nature and myself, and not really have noise or my phone or anything with me, so I can disconnect.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that is super important.
Yeah.
To just fostering that sense of connection and trust with yourself. And then also, and just starting to ask yourself questions, right? Like I have a meditation that I created, that's, in the course that I have, which is more around connecting with your intuition and then starting to ask like, okay, what if you have a question, like ask yourself, and then listen to the answers that you get. And I think that that's really important too, to like start to trust that you do know the answers. It's just about finding that place of trusting and listening to the answers. And that was a really big lesson for me around connecting with my psychic abilities, because I was always having all these messages coming through and understanding all these things, but I wasn't trusting it. And once I learned that the key to understanding and working with my abilities was simply just trusting what I was hearing, then like something clicked for me, where it was like, oh, this is all I have to do is trust this.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think a really good, interesting example of that is, it took me a long time to get to a point where I could just go for a walk and not have anything and not need a guided meditation. Do I still use guided meditation? Sure, from time to time, because they're nice. It's nice to break it up.
Yeah, definitely. I use them too.
Yeah, but it is good to figure out how to quiet your mind and listen to what is coming up. There was a situation that I had 2 years ago now, where I had a business partner and I just had a falling out. And I'm 3 years now in business. So yeah, it was like right towards the end of my first year. And it really bothered me a lot for like 6 months. Yeah. And then I started getting really a lot better at my meditation. And it came up for me one day in my meditation. And I was like, okay, why does this keep coming up? Why is this bothering me?
Right.
And when I started to like peel back the onion to figure out what it doesn't bother me anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered
because
by it.
You allowed yourself the space to look at it for what it was, deal with it, and then you were able to move on. But I think a lot of times we think it's easier to kind of like push things down and not deal with them. And that's why they keep coming up to the surface, you know?
Well, and what ends up happening in the business community or in your personal life or interpersonal relationships that you might have is, if you have some kind of frustration, irritation, anger, resentment towards somebody, that ends up coming out. It will always come out in ways that you probably don't want it to come out.
Exactly.
If you don't address it. So being able to take your time to ask those questions. So maybe what's a couple of examples of some good questions for us to ask ourselves when we're in our meditations?
Well, especially if there's something that you are specifically wanting to know, like say you're starting a new project, or you are doing something new and you want to know how you should proceed. Like for me, I just launched this course. So some things I've been asking myself is like, what is the perspective I should take, or how should I look at this, or what should I do next? Like those type of things. And then I'll listen to what answer comes through. So if there's specifically something going on that you want to know, like what is the best way to look at it, or what perspective should you take, I think those are really powerful questions to ask, or you could simply just ask, what is it that I need to know right now? What would you have me know? And you can just ask your intuition, like, what do I need to know, or how do I need to look at this? Stuff like that. So it can kind of give you like a perspective and kind of a place of like solace in a sense, and like calmness to not have to like worry about a situation. It's like, oh, okay, this is how I'm going to look at this now. And it kind of gives you that sense of like calm around it.
Nice. I love that. You're asking the what questions. You're what if, what now, what next. Those what questions are empowering. The how questions can be frustrating, can be closing doors instead of opening doors. But the what questions allow us to open the doors to possibilities of what is in front of us or what could be in front of us. So that's a great tip. Thank you, Alyse.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. What is a good way for people to start to open up their minds to be more receptive to other people's thoughts, opinions, beliefs? Because acknowledging that we all have these self-limiting beliefs is one piece of it, right?
Yes.
So if we can begin to acknowledge that we all have these self-limiting beliefs, how can we then start to open up our minds and our hearts to other people's beliefs with love and respect to help everybody break through some of those barriers.
Yeah. So I think for me, and this is what I work with my clients around too, I think it's really important to bring everything back to yourself, right? So if you're seeing somebody and you're working with somebody, or you come across somebody in your business or whatever it is, that whatever behavior they're engaging in or something they say upsets you or triggers you, right? It's never really about them. And it's always about you and something that you need to look at within yourself. So to me, obviously, it's important to be understanding and empathetic of other people, right? But if somebody says something that triggers you in some way or makes you uncomfortable in some way, to me, that's always an opportunity for growth. It's always an opportunity for you to look at yourself and say, okay, where have I not been fully healed in this area? What is this bringing up for me? And it could be, it's usually your own limiting beliefs that you have around yourself, or, you know, a relationship dynamic that you had growing up, or something that happened to you in the past. Usually when these things are not healed within us, they get triggered at certain points by other people. Kind of like you were saying, if you have a problem with somebody or you're holding on to resentment, it comes out in other ways. So to me, when you are experiencing when someone else, like, quote unquote, makes you mad, to me, that's an opportunity for growth within yourself, because it's never really about the other person.
Right. Awesome. It really isn't. And one of my good friends talks about this. It's never the thing. It's never the thing. It's never the person, and it's never the thing.
Yes.
It's always the thing behind the thing. It's the feeling behind the thing. It's the thought behind the thing, but it's never the thing.
Exactly.
And when she first told me that, I was like, oh, okay. I don't know what the hell that means, but whatever you say.
Yeah. You're like,
now
okay.
that I've gotten more in touch with my awareness, my self-awareness, and my receptiveness to other people's situations, the more I'm like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah.
Right. It's never the thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it almost, to me, like, looking at it like that is so empowering, because it kind of gives you agency to control the way that you feel and the way that you react to situations. Because once we're like blaming everything on other people or the situations outside of us, it kind of like gives our power away. So it's like, oh, I'm at the effect of this situation or this person. But once you realize that this is just showing you something that you can work on within yourself, it's like taking your power back and be like, okay, I'm going to look at that, and then I no longer have to be affected by this.
I love that. You get to take your power back.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a question. Do we ever really have control over anything? Since we're talking about taking our power back,
yeah,
a lot of people like to think, I know I used to think, I'll put it that way. I used to think that power meant you had control on things.
Right. And that's not necessarily true. Okay. I think that you can control the way you react to things, the way you look at things, the way you perceive certain situations. You know, like, something can happen that might seem that it's upsetting or not what you wanted to happen or unfortunate. And usually there's always an opportunity in that. So you do have control of the way that you perceive the situations and the people around you and how they're affecting you. But, we really don't have control over anything else. Definitely not over other people.
Definitely not over other people. That's true. That's true. So what we can do is control ourselves.
Yeah. And
that we have control on.
Right. And that it really just starts with the self-awareness. To me, that's our biggest tool to empower ourselves to really change the way that we look at things and be able to grow, is through self-awareness.
Alyse, you've given us some great things to think about today and great tips and places to start so that we can start to become more self-aware and have better relationships, better connection, better communication, because it all starts from that place of self-awareness. And so thank you for sharing those nuggets of information, teaching us. Do you want to, actually, here's a question. Talk about breath work.
Mm-hmm.
What is the breathing technique that we should take a look at or consider?
So that's a really good question. So the breathing technique that I use with my clients is super simple. It's called conscious connected breathing. And it's really just a circular breath where you connect your inhale to your exhale and you breathe in and out through the mouth. So it's really just a simple circular breath. And even if you just did that like 10 times, it could just help to relax you and bring you back to center. It would be a little different just to do it on your own than obviously when you're in a session with me and doing it for a longer period of time. There's different effects. But even if you just did it for, took 5 or 10 breaths that way, it really will help to change your energy almost immediately.
Can we do one?
Yeah, sure. I don't know that if you're watching me, it'll be easier. I don't know if people that are just listening will be able to understand as much, but I'll explain it so they can try it.
So therefore, if you are just listening to this, you might want to pop over to the YouTube channel and watch this section so that you can watch.
Yeah. And then also in my Facebook group, I have in the side, in the units part, I have a little video showing you how to do this. And then also I have a video on my website that shows you how to do it as well. So you can look at that also if you're not sure.
Excellent.
So what you do is for these purposes, you can just sit up tall and close your eyes. And then we'll be breathing in and out through the mouth. So, and you just want to think of it being a circle. So you're connecting your inhale to your exhale. So it looks like this. Yeah, and then you can just open your eyes. So it probably gave you the opportunity to breathe between 5 and 10 times. And I'm sure you notice a little bit in the change of your energy just from that little bit, right?
I do. Actually, the thing that I notice is my head feels lighter. You get that, like, it's almost like a buzzy feeling.
Yeah, you do. It's a tingly feeling. And in my sessions that are longer, you'll feel like sometimes your whole body will have that tingly feeling. And that's good because it just means that you're moving energy in your body, which is really, really important because like I was talking about before, all of these experiences, all of these old thoughts and old feelings that are unresolved are kind of like energetically living in the body. So as we move the energy and clear those out, we create space to create something new. That's not based on the past. That's based on what we're really wanting in the future for ourselves.
And that's really where that idea of manifestation gets to come into play.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. This has been so much fun. I appreciate you walking us through a breathwork exercise. I meant to ask that earlier, so I'm glad that we got a chance.
Yeah, I'm glad you did.
Yeah. So I guess the last question that I have for you, because I want to make sure that we respect your time and our listeners, is what's going to be the best way for everybody to get in touch with you? You mentioned a course. You mentioned this breathwork stuff in a Facebook group. So what are those things so that people can get plugged in and do more breathwork work with you?
Yes, definitely. So I do have a free Facebook group called Breathe Breathe to Succeed, which anyone can join, and you can just look that up on Facebook, and I can send you the link to that so people can join. And I have a lot of resources in there, and I'm always sharing information and doing live videos where I do oracle card readings and I talk about different aspects of breath work. So that's a really fun thing to join. And then also, the most exciting thing is I just launched an 8-week course called The Metamorphosis, which is 8 weeks to uncovering your divine purpose and manifesting rock star status in career and relationships. So this is really a all-encompassing course where we use breath work each week, and then each week is a different module around uncovering subconscious limiting beliefs that are holding you back. And then we move into going really deep in learning how to connect with your intuition, and then uncover what your divine gifts are and how you're going to share them with the world. So it's a really transformational course that includes 8 weeks of really targeted breathwork sessions to help you release exactly what you need to propel yourself forward, and also meditations. And then I also give live support as well. So it's self-led, but it's also mixed with me giving bi-weekly live support calls to everyone in the course. So it is really an awesome opportunity. And for your listeners, I'm going to extend my early bird pricing, which is 20% off of the course. And I will send you a link for that as well.
That's so cool. It sounds like a really powerful, very impactful course. It sounds like you're going to be really helping people to shift some of those beliefs so that they can start to really see the success that they know they are capable of deep down inside, even if it's not actually coming to fruition for them right now. But you can teach them how to make that happen.
Exactly. And that's accessible on my website as well, which is AlyseBreathes.com.
AlyseBreathes.com.
Yes.
Nice. Yes, do send me the links because I'll make sure to include them. So those of you that are watching right now, you probably see that down at the bottom of the screen. And it will be in the YouTube comments, and it'll be out on the podcast comments section as well, so that people can click on it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Alyse, so much for being here. I'm so glad that we've had this time together, that we got to know each other a little bit. And I'm really excited for you and your course. I'm glad that you did this and that it's in line with you. And, you know, you've got the education background, so it's nice that you found a way to do the education in the way that you want to do it.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.